Hi, so first of all, my dishwasher is going and it's kind of loud. Sorry, I didn't think about it. So I've been reading Jason Fung's book. So it's called The Obesity Code. And if you're not familiar with Jason Fung, you really should be. He is a Canadian physician. He's a nephrologist, so kidney doctor. And he's been practicing for, I don't know, decades. And he treated and treats patients in kidney failure. And most of his patients were diabetic because that's by far the most common cause of renal failure is type 2 diabetes. Maybe type 1 as well, I don't know. But, he kind of noticed that basically, just like in a lot of areas of medicine, he was treating the symptoms and not the cause. He was treating kidney patients with dialysis, but he wanted to examine why patients become diabetic, and that involved examining why patients become fat, because they're very closely linked, because we know that the root cause of obesity and diabetes is hormonal and involves insulin and insulin resistance. So he set about looking at the research on obesity and why we get fat, and he discovered that our assumptions about obesity are completely wrong. And what we're told by the government and the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, and the FDA about what to eat to not get fat or to lose weight, eat less, move more, and all these things have been proven repeatedly to be wrong. So the book, I'm only about 20% through the book because I've been looking at, I'm not gonna say researching because I hate it when people say, I did my research. Where's your lab? Like, where do you buy your test tubes in bulk? Like, I mean, basically, when people say I've been researching, what they mean is I've been reading, and I've been reading about this, and I guess a form of research or experimentation, my own experience, since about, if you want to really take it back, I started dieting when I was like 10, drinking Slim Fast shakes like my mom. But my hardcore, like, diving into nutrition and metabolism, insulin resistance, and all this started in 2009 because I was having major health issues, and the doctors not only couldn't figure out what was wrong, they didn't seem the slightest bit interested in figuring out what was wrong. They just wanted to give me pills. And so that's like a whole other video series. But I've been really interested in this subject for personal reasons and experimenting with these things since, for over a decade. And I spent over a decade doing the carnivore thing. And that taught me a lot. And now I've spent over a year doing the fasting thing, and it's taught me a lot. And, but basically today I want to look at, he has so much to say, and it's extremely important because we are not going to solve the obesity epidemic, and it is an epidemic, unless we understand the causes. And the mainstream does not understand the causes. The mainstream understanding is still calories in, calories out, okay? What they call, I don't know if you pronounce it CICO or CICO, but it's abbreviated CICO. And his chapter is called the calorie reduction error, and it's been proven over and over to not work in the long term. And so I wanna talk specifically about this today because I have friends and family members and a lot of people I know who still believe in this, and I understand why they do because it sounds like it makes sense. It sounds like it should work that way. It sounds like, well, duh, if you take in fewer calories than you put out, then you're gonna lose weight. That's just how it works. But there are several mistaken assumptions in this hypothesis. And so I want to talk about those. So he has, and sorry, I had to, if I wear my glasses, I get this glare on them, but I can't see without them. So I have to pick up my Kindle. So he talks about these 5 assumptions, okay? These false assumptions that are built into the calories in, calories out theory, this sort of paradigm of weight loss and gain. Assumption 1, calories in and calories out are independent of each other. The reason why this is not the case is when you take in fewer calories, your body puts out fewer calories. Your body tries to conserve energy based on the energy that you take in. And the analogy that he uses is like a coal furnace, where if you have 2,000 pounds of coal, you are going to shovel in and use 2,000 pounds of coal. But if you only get 1,000 pounds of coal the next day, then you aren't going to shovel in 2,000 pounds of coal. You're going to decrease the rate at which you shovel and how much you shovel, because you're going to run out if you don't. And the body does that naturally. And that's really, really important. Okay, assumption number 2, which is related, is that basal metabolic rate is stable. There's a lot more to what the body does with food energy than just exercise. We think, oh, well, I exercised more. But 95% of your energy expenditure is autonomic, it's automatic. It's organ function, breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity. This is why when you drop your calories really low, you get lethargic, you get cold, your heart rate slows, etc. So, it's easy to measure how much you take in, but it's really hard to measure how much you put out. So you have to add up not only your basal metabolic rate and your exercise, but your total energy expenditure can go up or down. It can vary by up to like 50% based on what you're taking in, okay? Assumption number 3 is that we exert conscious control over calories in. And this is a major misconception about obesity and eating. Eating is not a conscious decision. It is a hormonal deciding to eat or take in food is controlled by our hormones. Okay, we have hormones like leptin and ghrelin and insulin that compel us to eat, and every cell in our body is screaming, eat, 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 eat. Fat people, I'm sure there are fat people who get fat because they're like, I just want to get fat. But obesity is a hormonal disorder, and the problem with it is that our hormone, we have all of these functions, it's very complex, telling us take in food, take in food. And so just deciding to cut calories is really not that simple. You have to control the hormones that control you. And that's Dr. Fung's whole point. Obesity is a hormonal disorder. It is an imbalance in your hormones, and what they're telling you is what has to be controlled. You have to exert control over them. It's not as simple as deciding, I'm just not going to eat. You have to manage that hormonal imbalance and correct it. And you can do that with food, paradoxically. Assumption number 4 is fat stores are essentially unregulated. This assumes that, oh, well, obviously I'm going to cut calories, and so my body is just going to go straight to my fat. And okay, well, that's not really true either. Like he says, every single system in the body is regulated: growth and height, blood sugar, sexual maturation, body temperature. The growth of fat cells is the same thing. Eating will result in fat growth. We're asked to believe that eating will result in fat growth and not eating will just get rid of our fat. But we know that leptin quote, leptin is the best known hormone regulating fat growth, but adiponectin, hormone-sensitive lipase, lipoprotein lipase, and adipose triglyceride lipase may all play important roles. If hormones regulate fat growth, then obesity is a hormonal, not a caloric disorder. And we also know that insulin is a hormone that triggers your body to store fat. Now, I can give you a personal example of this. What's the time of this? 10 minutes. Okay, I told you that I was carnivore for like 10 years, okay? And I am again. And so over those 10 years, I was not just unrelentingly strict carnivore for the entire decade. I would say that I was about 95% carnivore about 80% of that time. And then for another maybe 5% of that time, I was 100% carnivore, okay? So, and there were times when I went off. The times when I went off, every single time, and you would think that I would learn, right? And this is why you should learn from my dumbass instead of learning on your own. It's a fool who learns from his own mistakes. You don't need to make them. I made them. Just listen to me. Every single time I got derailed off carnivore, and I'd be doing great and I'd be feeling great. I did lose a lot of weight on carnivore. I lost 70 pounds right off the bat. My weight loss plateaued. And I believe, from what I've learned in the past year and a half, that it's because I didn't have the fasting component. Because you need the carbohydrate control, and you also need the fasting component. So I did plateau, but I got a lot of what they call NSVs from carnivore, non-scale victories. Carnivore improved my health in a myriad of ways that I will need to do another video on. But every single time that I would be trucking along, being carnivore, feeling good, having all these benefits, right? There was one thing that derailed me every single time. And it was diet soda. Every time. I'd be carnivore strictly, 95%. Maybe I have a few pickles or olives with my meal, or maybe once in a while I'd have a burger wrapped in lettuce. Other than that, drinking only coffee, water, unsweet tea, maybe some sparkling water, never tasting anything sweet. That's really important. And I would be doing great. And then I would be like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good, and I've been doing really good. I really want a Cherry Coke Zero. Cherry Coke Zero is like heroin to me, okay? It lights up the reward center of my brain like a Christmas tree. I can't explain it. I switched from regular soda to diet soda like 20 years ago, so I don't even like really remember the taste of regular soda, but Cherry Coke Zero, oh my gosh. And so I would be eyeing that Cherry Coke Zero like freaking the Sylvester the cat looking at Tweety Bird, and I'm old. And I'd be like, it's okay, I can have one. If I have one a month, just one a month, I'll put it on my calendar. And I would drink that Cherry Coke Zero, and the next day I would be like, I really fucking want another Cherry Coke Zero. Next thing you know, I'm drinking them twice a day, and the next thing you know, I want to eat different stuff, because you know what? It won't hurt me to just have a burger with a gluten-free bun. And then I'm off to the races, and it snowballs, right? So it was no different this time with my fasting. I lost 110 pounds at that point. I'm doing great, and diet soda's not gonna hurt me. I'll have it with my refeed, and then that turns into having it not with my refeed, and then that turns into, oh, I'm not eating. I'll just drink diet sodas. I started to see my weight loss slow and then stop, go up, go down, go up, go down, go up, go down. Happened for a few months. I decided to do a little experiment where I did a 72-hour fast. I took in no calories, okay? Black coffee, water, diet soda, no calories, okay? I'm taking in no calories. I still have excess body fat. So theoretically, since I am technically fasting, I should drop weight. even though I'm drinking diet soda because, you know, no calories, not taking in any food. But what happened was I didn't lose an ounce. My weight, the first time I tried this, my weight literally stayed exactly the same to the ounce on a 72-hour fast. When normally, depending on how big you are, if you're male or female, if you're just starting, if you have been doing it for a while, etc., you'll lose, you know, 1.5 pounds to 5 pounds on a 72-hour fast. And I lost nothing. So what does that tell us? Well, there's a lot of back and forth about whether artificial sweeteners cause your insulin to spike, and I can't wait to get to that part in his book because I'm sure that he's reviewed the literature and I'm interested in what he has to say. But I've read, you know, I haven't gone into detail and read, you know, the methodology of the studies. I've just looked at some abstracts and stuff, and a lot of these are in mice and rats, which barely even counts. We're humans. But from what I have been able to gather, it's kind of maybe artificial sweeteners spike insulin. Sucralose probably does. Aspartame probably doesn't, depending on what you read, right? Et cetera, et cetera. I know it spikes mine because I do not lose weight when I drink diet soda, even though I'm taking in 0 calories. So that tells you already that calories in, calories out is bullshit, even if you don't feel like reading a whole book where a medical doctor reviews the literature and talks about his 20 years of experience and practice. My personal experience tells me I can never have diet soda again. I'm like an alcoholic who has to be stone cold sober. You know, some maybe can like moderate. I don't know that much about alcoholism, but I know that some can't touch it because once they touch it, it triggers something and it's off to the races. And that's the way it is for me in artificial sweeteners. And I'm having to sadly accept that fact because, again, I love it, but it completely fucks me up. But you know, you hear this fallacy all the time. Oh, well, fat people, you know, on food stamps at the grocery store, and oh, if they're so poor, why are they fat? Well, I mean, I get the point, right? And a lot of times it's just people's way of bitching about the welfare system or whatever. And so I take the point of it, but the assumption there is false because you can eat not that much and you can spend not that much money and you can definitely still get fat if you're eating the wrong things and if you're eating them too frequently. That brings us to assumption number 5. A calorie is a calorie. And he says this assumption is the most dangerous of all. And I agree. I'm gonna quote from him briefly. He says, a calorie is a calorie implies that the only important variable in weight gain is the total caloric intake, and thus all foods can be reduced to their caloric energy. But does a calorie of olive oil cause the same metabolic response as a calorie of sugar? The answer is obviously no. These two foods have many easily measurable differences. Sugar will increase the blood glucose level and provoke an insulin response from the pancreas. Olive oil will not. The two different foods have vastly different metabolic and hormonal responses. He goes on to talk about a study that I believe it was a doctor who did it on himself, and he was researching this calories in, calories out, all calories are equal thing, and he ate the same amount of calories in 2 different experiments. But in the first, it was, I forget the exact percentage of macros, but it was high fat, low carb. And of course he lost weight and lost inches in his waist, and his body composition changed, more lean mass, less fat. And then he did sometime later, he did the exact same experiment, but with the FDA recommended food pyramid diet, where it's like 55% carbs or whatever the bullshit is they tell us, and then, you know, low in fat, etc. And he, of course, gained weight and gained inches in his waist. And I remember back in the day on zero carb forums, there was a guy who did an experiment similarly where he tried to gain weight on carnivore, animal sourced foods only, and he kept his exercise. He was an active guy, and he was in the gym a lot. But he kept his exercise the same, and he ate, I can't remember the number, but I think it was like 6,000 calories more, or I don't know, it was thousands more calories than he supposedly needed, you know, for homeostasis and his, you know, to maintain his weight. And according to the, you know, 1,500 calories is a pound or whatever it is, which is also not accurate, he should have gained a lot of weight. And this guy was pounding it like he was trying to get these calories in all animal source foods. He was literally drinking pints of heavy cream. And I mean, just cramming fat, you know, fatty meat and butter and cheese. And at the end of the month that he did this, the result was that he did not gain anything. His weight just stayed the same because these are hypoinsulinogenic foods. These foods help us regulate the hormones that make us fat, that tell us to release or store fat, that tell us that we're hungry or not. And that's why I'm finally pushing through my plateau and having success again, fasting shorter, now that I'm down to, you know, close to what I think is probably my ideal weight. My fasts have gotten shorter because I'm trying to boost back up my metabolism and get my body accustomed to eating more regularly again. And I'm also eating strict animal source food refeeds. I'm not having any artificial sweeteners. And of course, no diet sodas. But so I wanted to share this, and I'm going to end this video because it's kind of long at this point. But I can't recommend this book highly enough. I might do some more videos on it because, you know, I've been interested in this subject, reading about this subject, experimenting on myself regarding this subject for a long time, and so, you know, the basics of this are really familiar to me, and some of even the more counterintuitive things I already knew. Either from previous, you know, research or my own experimentation and experience, but I'm learning a lot. And I know a lot more about this than the average person, but I'm learning a lot. And the great thing about the book as well is that it's written for the layperson, but it's not boring. Well, it's not boring to me. It might be boring to some people, but if you're all interested in the subject, if you struggle with obesity, which many of you do who are watching this, I cannot recommend it highly enough. Like I said, I'm only 1/5 of the way through, so he's still kind of laying out the problem and hasn't got to the solution yet. I'm familiar with his work and his website and his articles, and I've read a lot of his stuff. So, you know, it won't be probably as illuminating to me as it will be for some of you who aren't familiar with him. But if you aren't, or even if you are, pick up the book, The Obesity Code, Jason Fung, that's F-U-N-G. It's on Amazon. I have the Kindle version. I think it was like $10. And yeah, I'm going to come back and probably talk some more about some of these points. But your takeaway is that calories in, calories out over time has an approximately 100% failure rate. It just doesn't work. And he's going to go into, I just talked today about the false assumptions that are built into it, but he has a whole chapter detailing studies and experiments, and some of them extremely well done and expensive and comprehensive and over many, many years with a huge sample size and a, you know, control group, etc. They just prove it. It doesn't work. It actually damages your basal metabolism over time, indefinitely, actually. We don't know how long, if it ever really repairs. So if you're tempted to cut calories without fasting, if you're tempted to, keep your eating frequency up but cut your calories, don't. Over the long term, it doesn't work and it will mess you up. But, he talks about this as well. I haven't got to that part of the book, but in his many articles, fasting is a completely different physiological process than dieting. And when you stop eating completely for a period of time, it is a completely different ballgame than continuing to eat with frequency but cutting calories. And I'll talk about that at a different time, but long story short, it doesn't damage your metabolism. As a matter of fact, your metabolism goes up. So I'll leave it there for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this video if you liked it or if you think it can help someone. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. And you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook group is called Fasting Focused. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Fasting Kristen, the same as this channel. And my email address is fastingkristen@gmail.com if you need to reach me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon.